So this is a diet that demands that you take one cheat day every single week, which is awesome. It's the only reason I've been able to stick with it so strictly. But there are rules to cheat day, and after going through quite a bit of research, looking at people's past experiences and attempts, it looks like glossing over the rules will dramatically affect results. Welcome to Get It Together, and if you're new here, this channel is just me trying to figure out how to get my life together and sharing the tips and lessons I learned along the way. And as you may have gathered from the intro, this video is all about the rules and best practices for cheat day in order to maximize your ability to keep on losing weight fast. There are three parts to this video. The first part is what the goal of these rules are. In other words, what are the principles that these goals are trying to support to achieve? The second part is what the rules are, literally just bullet point listing them out. And the third part is essentially diving a little bit into science, in other words, the why of the rules. And I think this is a really important one, so I welcome you to stick through the entire video. I'm the kind of person where if I'm told to do something and I don't understand the why behind it, it just makes it a lot more difficult for me to accept it. In the 4-Hour Body, Tim Ferriss does quite a deep dive into the scientific details. I'm not going to do that in this video, but one thing that I did find interesting is that even though I own the book, I didn't really pay attention to the rules of cheat day the first read. It wasn't until I was about to get ready to give this 1-month challenge a shot where I really took the time to read that portion of the Slow Carb Diet in the 4-Hour Body, and I'm really happy I did because the rules are super important. So for the first part of this video, we're just going to gain a brief understanding of what the core goals of all of these rules are. The short of it is, for cheat days, there are only 3 goals that we have for the delicious crap that we're going to be eating. The first goal is for us to make ourselves feel fuller so that we have kind of this natural, automatic, consistent portion control throughout the day. The second goal is to have as much of the bad calories attach themselves to our muscle cells before they have the opportunity to attach to our fat cells. The third goal is to make ourselves poop more and sooner so that the crappy calories don't have the opportunity to metabolize as effectively and for it to just kind of pass through our digestive tracts. And so on to part 2, what are the rules for proper cheat day execution? The first rule is to have a regular slow carb diet compliant breakfast. Again, hitting 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up. The second rule is to have freshly squeezed grapefruit juice before the first crappy meal. The third rule is to have fresh citrus throughout the day, especially before crappy meals. Me personally, I pair that with the fourth rule, which is having enough water, still having the 8 glasses of water per day. And what I do is, instead of just having straight water, I just take fresh lemons, squeeze them into water bottles, and carry those bottles of water everywhere I go. That way, I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, to have enough water throughout the day, but also to have freshly squeezed citrus kind of right before all of my worst meals. The fifth rule is to have caffeine also before the crappiest of meals. And in the book, it's recommended to have 100 to 200 milligrams. And just as a general rule of thumb, 8 ounces or 250 milliliters of coffee is about 100 milligrams. The sixth rule also has to do with kind of the crappiest meals. And the rule states that about a minute or 2 before you have the really crappy meal, to do about a minute, minute and a half of calisthenics, just kind of squats or wall push-ups. And the seventh rule, which admittedly I do not follow at all, is to use an AG stack and PAG stack, the supplements that Tim Ferriss recommends. Me personally, I don't follow it just because I don't want to spend extra money on supplements at this point. I want to be able to validate over the course of this month that this diet is effective for me, completely supplement free. Some of them actually counteract each other. For example, scientifically, if we make ourselves go to the bathroom faster, that can actually raise the glycemic index of meals. And so it's important that we have the grapefruit juice, the fructose in there, as well as citrus throughout the day so that we can blunt the insulin spikes that inducing faster visits to the bathroom would cause. So now that we've kind of fired through a rapid bullet round of all of the rules themselves, let's take a look at the justifications and the scientific reasonings for these rules. The justification for the first rule, which is to have a regular slow carb diet compliant breakfast, 30 grams of protein within 30 minutes of waking up, is for the exact same reason that it works for the rest of the week. I'm already into week 3 and it's amazing every single day. Having that same breakfast makes me so full that I don't even think about lunch for 5, 6, 7 hours. And so the first justification for having this regular kind of breakfast on cheat day is sort of like automatic portion control for the rest of cheat day. The second justification cited in the book is that you want insoluble fibers like beans or lentils. And the purpose for these insoluble fibers is to I'm actually a 5-year-old. The purpose of these insoluble fibers in the beans and lentils is to just prevent diarrhea afterwards with all the crap and the mixture that you're going to be putting in that's so opposite to what the rest of the week looks like. The justification in the 4-Hour Body for the second rule, which is to have freshly squeezed grapefruit juice, is actually to get that fructose. In the 4-Hour Body, Tim Ferriss writes that fructose has an impressive near flat-lining effect on blood glucose. In other words, having the fructose from the freshly squeezed grapefruit juice will just enable your body to regulate the blood glucose throughout the rest of the day a lot better. Now the third rule, which is to have citrus, such as freshly squeezed lemon, before the most crappy meals. Tim Ferriss himself admits that this has not been officially scientifically proven in a very broad, controlled scientific experiment. However, if you guys read the book, you may remember that Tim Ferriss went really obsessive with tracking every metric down to the last detail, including having a glucose meter implanted into himself. What he discovered through the readings of this glucose meter implanted in his own body is that having this citrus was able to lower his glycemic index, or blood sugar peaks, by up to 10%. Again, he reminds us in the 4-Hour Body that this has not yet, at least at the time of writing, been a large academic, scientific, controlled study done on a large group of people. However, what is scientifically proven is that we need our natural human growth hormone in order to burn fat effectively. And when insulin levels rise in our bodies, the natural human growth hormone that is required for burning fat naturally decreases. And so for me, if adding fresh citrus throughout the day will enable my body to lower that insulin level potentially, I'm all in. It's not a tough thing to do. The fourth rule was the most interesting for me when it came to the actual research portion of the scientific stuff. And that is continuing to drink 8 glasses of water a day, or staying properly hydrated. Before we even get to the scientific aspect of it, just drinking enough water kind of does the same thing that breakfast does, which is automatic portion control. If you drink 8 glasses of water a day, you're just naturally going to be a little bit fuller. So the quantity of bad stuff that you eat is just going to be less. But now onto the scientific stuff. When it comes to burning fat itself, from a scientific terminology, is called fat oxidation. Now, in order for fat oxidation, or burning fat, to take place, we actually need the fat to be broken up. We need those triglycerides to be separated into free fatty acids. The breaking up of fat itself into free fatty acids is a process called lipolysis. By the way, do you say process or process? Anyways, lipolysis is the actual breaking up of the fats into free fatty acids. And the very first step of lipolysis is hydrolysis, meaning we need enough water in our bodies in order to even start the process of breaking up the fat so that we can even have a chance to oxidize it or burn it away. So what do we have here? In order to burn fat, we need to break fat first. And in order to break fat, the very first thing we need is enough water in order to start the process of breaking that fat up. So in my non-scientist opinion, although I did a non-insignificant amount of research, if there's one takeaway, it's for every single day throughout the slow carb diet to get enough damn water. The justification for the next rule, which is to have 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine before your crappiest meals, is also, as Tim Ferriss himself admits, not scientifically proven in an official controlled academic study. Now, similarly to the whole glucose meter being implanted in his body to test the effects of citrus, when it comes to this hypothesis, Tim Ferriss also kind of went a little bit nuts. Before we reveal what he did, which if you've read the book you already know, but the purpose of the 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine is essentially to aid in the pushing of the bad crap out of our digestive tracts. And what he did is he recorded how long it took for him after meals to go to the bathroom, and also he took his crap and literally weighed it on a scale. So according to him, it definitely made a difference, and for me personally, it's not a high barrier to have an extra cup of delicious sweet coffee for me personally. The justification and scientific reasoning for the 6th rule, which is to do resistance exercises for about a minute and a half shortly before the worst meals, and also ideally an hour to an hour and a half after them, is really interesting. Basically, it has to do with something called GLUT4, or glucose transporter type 4. GLUT4, in simple terms, which is all I can handle, essentially is something that takes calories and just transports them to parts of our body. Doing these resistance exercises opens up the doors in our muscle cells so the GLUT4 transports the calories into our muscle cells, hopefully enabling our muscles to use up these calories first. It's really important to note though that this same GLUT4 is the same transporter that takes these calories and sends them into our fat cells once insulin triggers it to do so. In other words, doing these resistance exercises in order to have the muscle doors open is only first part of the equation. Part 2 of the equation, again, because it's insulin that tells the GLUT4 to transfer those things into our fat cells, is to blunt insulin, so the GLUT4 is getting a weaker signal to send it into our fat cells. This again is done potentially by having that citrus juice, and also with the last rule, which again I personally do not follow, and that is using the PAG and AG stack of supplements. To spin it back and play that record again that I played earlier, I'm just not down with supplements right now. I don't have some like anything against supplements themselves. It's just for me personally, I don't want to have to spend money on them and I don't want to have to remember to take them. And lastly, I'm just really curious how effective this diet will be without any supplements. I did read it, but I didn't really retain it because I already knew that I was not going to be using supplements. But if you're interested, you should definitely read. Again, page 114 to 120 of the 4-Hour Body. And if you don't own the book yet, you can find it in the links in the description below. Ultimately, the core premise is that this stack, in combination when used in cheat day especially, really blunts the sensitivity of insulin, which therefore sends a weaker signal to the pancreas, which in turn makes the pancreas release less insulin. So the 3 original parts of this video are essentially done at this point, right? We talked about the goals of these rules, we listed the rules one by one, and then we talked about the justification and the scientific reasonings for these rules. But one thing that I thought would be pretty interesting to share is, I know we're not supposed to count calories, but I was just genuinely curious. And so for cheat day number 2, I consumed a grand total of 6,460 calories. That's 3.5 times my BMR. That is an insane amount of calories. And although everybody's body is different, I only shot up 3.5 pounds, and within 72 hours, I was lower in weight than I started on the day of cheat day before I had any crap. So for me personally at least, making sure that I hit as many of these rules as strictly as possible definitely helps. I do want to remind you guys again that in my non-scientist opinion, if there's one takeaway, it's to make sure that you're drinking enough water, not just on cheat day, but throughout the entire week, every single day. There are 3 groups of people that I really want to thank throughout this journey where I've just passed the halfway mark. The first group is anyone who's been watching these videos and also people who have been commenting on them. It's been really interesting to have different conversations with different people about all sorts of topics regarding the slow carb diet right below in all of the comment sections. The second group of people I want to thank are the people who have helped me stay accountable by ensuring that I am posting my breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day to the Instagram account @GitVlog to the highlights and stories. I really don't want to lose $100, and it's because of you guys that I'm motivated to keep on posting. Finally is a subreddit 4-Hour Body Slow Carb. Again, I've said this in a previous video, but this is essentially an 8 or 9 year history of over 14,000 people who have tried it at some point, are trying it now, are continuing to lose weight, and there is an answer to almost any question that you can possibly think of just searching through the history, and if not, people are so engaged and helpful to respond to your questions when you post them. I'm about halfway through week 3, and candidly, I've been really happy with the results, and I can't wait to share my week 3 update in the next video coming up.